They say the Obu River has a memory, not just of the rain that feeds it or the fish that swim in its depths, but of everything it has touched, everything it has taken. Long before, hot Thursday afternoon had turned cold in Obuku waterside. Little Neko was just 8 years old. She chased a butterfly, a bright blue speck of joy, past her compound, down the winding path behind the village church, and too close to the water's edge. No one noticed until it was too late. By the time the first scream echoed through the quiet village, all they found were her tiny sandals. One was stuck in the mud, half buried, and the other floated slowly, drifting away in the shallow part of the Obu waterside. The river that day was so calm it looked like it was sleeping. But Neko was gone. This wasn't the first time the Obu had taken someone. It wouldn't be the last. And the villagers knew. They knew the river had a hunger. Loveth was 28 years old, and Port Harcourt had broken her. She stuffed her whole life into one dusty Ghana must go back. She didn't look back. Not at the cruel salon boss who treated her like dirt. Not at the boyfriend who just disappeared after 4 years. And definitely not at the so-called friends who only called when they needed freebies. Port Harcourt is not for me, she whispered to the rattling bus window. I'm never coming back. She was tired of fighting, tired of losing. She heard about Obuku Waterside, a small community far from the city's noise. People said life there was cheap and peaceful. It sounded like a dream. Loveth was running towards a fresh start, a clean slate. But what no one told her, what she didn't see through her hopeful eyes, was that the peace in Obuku came with a secret, hidden deep beneath the calm surface of its river. And that peace would demand a painful price. For 2 weeks, Loveth worked herself raw. She applied for every job. She wanted to save enough to open her own salon. She worked as a salesgirl in a small provision store. She sold akara, bean cakes, by the roadside, feeling the sun bake her skin. On her worst nights, she even took on cheap, secret hookups, closing her eyes, pushing down the shame. Every kobo, every tear was for her dream. About a month later, Loveth finally had enough money. Her salon dream felt so close. But then she hit a wall. The shops in Obuku were impossibly expensive. Her budget, just 5,000 naira, wasn't even half of what she needed. Despair started to creep back in. One afternoon, her friend Maki mentioned something. Loveth, Maki said quietly, there's an abandoned building by the riverside. No one's entered it in 10 years. Loveth's heart leaped. 10 years? Empty? That meant cheap. Finally, she screamed, joy bubbling over. God has answered my prayers. She didn't think twice. She just pictured her own salon, her own place. The next day, Loveth went straight to the building. When she pushed open the creaking door and stepped inside, her heart truly did leap. It was old, yes. Rusty, yes. Thick cobwebs hung like dusty lace from every corner. But it was hers. She didn't care about the rust or the dust. She started cleaning right away. Within 5 hours, the place was spotless. The next day, she bought all the equipment she needed from the market. In just 2 weeks, the salon was ready. She named it Loveth's Heaven. The community watched, not with interest, but with silent terror. They saw Loveth open her salon in that building, the one by the river that had been empty for so long. Loveth saw their stares, their hushed whispers, but she ignored them. She was sure. Her salon was close to the river, and the river, she believed, offered nothing but peace. People would flock to her. But months passed, and not a single person came into her salon. Not even a fly. Every day she sat outside, waving at everyone who passed, hoping someone, anyone, would come closer. No one did. What is wrong? Am I cursed? Why is no one coming to my salon? She asked Maki, her voice cracking. Maki looked uneasy. I think it's because of the location of your salon, my dear, Maki replied softly. Location? Loveth scoffed. What's wrong with a salon by the riverside? The view is beautiful. The river offers peace. That's why I didn't think twice. Maki just shook her head. I think I made a mistake telling you about this place, Loveth. I would advise you to leave here. But Loveth was stubborn. She believed so much in the river, in its false promise of peace, that she ignored the worried stares. She turned a deaf ear to any advice. She had no money for proper food. Some days, she'd suck on a dry cube of Maggie, just to feel something in her empty stomach. On her worst days, she'd soak a small amount of Gary in cold river water and pretend it was ice cream. The villagers all said no business ever survived near the river. They said the river was cursed. But Loveth didn't believe in curses. She believed in second chances. She believed in herself. At least, she did until that rainy night. The rain had just stopped. The air was thick and heavy. It was almost midnight. Loveth sat alone in her salon, the silence broken only by the drip, drip, drip of water from the roof. Then she heard it. A knock on her door. It wasn't loud. It was soft, gentle, like fingertips tapping on wood. Her heart started to beat very fast. Who knocks on a salon door in a forgotten community at midnight? No one ever came at this dark hour, not even the drunk fisherman. She was still wondering who it could be when she heard another knock. It was more insistent this time. At first, she wanted to ignore it. But the knock persisted. She crossed her chest 3 times, whispering quick, silent prayers. Then, on tiptoes, she crept towards the door and opened it gently. A woman stood there. She was barefoot and soaked, water dripping from her long dark hair. She looked human, yes, but there was something wrong, something unnatural. The woman walked inside without asking, without a word, and sat calmly on a plastic salon chair. Loveth stared, fear chilling her to the bone. "Good evening," she managed, her voice shaking. "Please, what do you want?" The woman smiled faintly, a strange, ancient curve of her lips. "My name is Didi," she said. Her voice was like water flowing over stones. "And I have come to make you rich. I have seen your worries. Your silent prayers trouble my soul. I don't understand," Loveth stammered. "Where are you from? How will you make me rich? Do you want to buy my braided wigs?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "When the time comes, you will know who I am," Didi replied. "All I want from you is to sell my wigs. When you sell them, keep the money. But you must sell them." And just like that, Didi stood up and walked away. Loveth rushed after her, but Didi was already walking into the river in front of the salon. The water welcomed her. It closed around her like an old friend. Within seconds, she disappeared beneath the surface. The last thing Loveth saw was her long, dark hair, floating for a moment before sinking. The next morning, Loveth woke up with a pounding head. It must have been a dream. A terrifying, vivid dream. But then she saw it. A black nylon bag sitting right in front of her salon door. She stared at it, then brought it inside, her hands trembling. With shaking fingers, she opened the bag. Her breath caught. Inside were different kinds of wigs. From bouncy curls to sleek bone straight. Single donor, double drawn. They looked like nothing she had ever seen, shimmering slightly, impossibly perfect. "Could these be the wigs Didi spoke about?" she whispered. "But what will I tell Maki? How do I explain where I got the money to buy these?" Guilt and fear coiled in her stomach. God, what have I gotten myself into? While she was still thinking, someone knocked on her door. It wasn't Didi this time. It was a young woman, holding her phone. "Hello. Are you the one doing hair here? I saw your salon on Instagram." Loveth blinked. Instagram? She wasn't even on Instagram. Her salon wasn't either. Before she could even process what the woman said, 2 more women arrived. Then 3, then 5. The numbers kept growing. By 9 a.m., there was a long line forming outside her tiny salon. All strangers. Some came from the next town. Others said they left their office job early because something told them to come. The scariest part was that most of them couldn't explain how they heard about Loveth. Loveth was confused and nervous. But the hunger in her belly, the crushing weight of her debts, made the decision for her. She started braiding their hair. Before the sky grew dark, she had finished. 5 out of the 15 women who came that day bought her wigs. She sold them for 115,000 naira each. Just like that, Loveth made over 900,000 naira that day. The moment the women left, she sank to the floor, her mouth open in shock. She didn't know whether to cry or rejoice. Is this a dream come true? Or a trap? What exactly have I gotten myself into? She thought of running away with the money, disappearing. But Didi appeared in her dream that night, a silent, watchful presence, warning her never to leave the building. Instead, she should renovate it, make it grand. And every day when she woke up, she would find a black nylon bag filled with new, impossibly perfect wigs in front of her salon. With a heavy sigh, she would bring it in. Just like that, Loveth's heaven became famous. Not just in the community, but beyond. People whispered that her salon wasn't just ordinary. It was a place where your joy could be restored. Women who came looking tired and sad left with smiling faces, their spirits lifted. One shy girl who barely said hello left dancing, filming herself with new confidence. Another lady looked in the mirror and screamed, "I feel so powerful." Her dusty salon was suddenly the hottest place in the community, maybe even the whole state. Loveth still didn't understand what was going on, but she liked it. She renovated the entire building, bought modern equipment, and hired more staff. The community women who once ignored her now started coming to her salon. She opened an Instagram account, and orders for her wigs poured in from all over. When Maki, her friend, asked about her sudden wealth, Loveth lied. She said her uncle in America had sent her money to start the business. Soon, strange stories began to spread. Stories about certain customers who bought her wigs. It started with a woman named Amy, a jobless single mother who had been applying for grants for over a year without luck. She wore one of the wigs her friend bought from Loveth to a wedding. The very next day, a foreign company sent her a grant of $5,000 for a food business she had abandoned last year. Another woman, Iobo, had been struggling to get pregnant for 5 years. She got pregnant 2 days after buying one of Loveth's wigs. Then there was Bulma, a quiet university student who always sat at the back of the room. She wore a sleek black wig she bought from Loveth and posted a short video of herself on TikTok. The next morning, she woke up to 1 million views and a brand deal waiting for her. Her followers even started calling her the mermaid body. None of the women could explain how their lives transformed overnight. But they all knew. Things started turning around the moment they wore Loveth's wigs. Loveth couldn't believe what was happening. Things were happening faster than she had expected. Every day, she received countless testimonials from clients about the miracles her wigs worked. She told herself she was just lucky, that maybe God had finally remembered her. But sometimes at night, she would lie awake in her bed, the cold questions whispering in her mind. Why are these wigs doing this? And who really is Didi? In all of this, Mama Alake was watching. Every morning, Mama Alake would set up her puff-puff table just a few steps from Loveth's shop. She was in her 60s, with a round face, strong arms, and a Bible that never left her side. Her late husband used to call her the village prophetess. And even though she laughed when people said that, her eyes were sharp, watching everything. She noticed the changes before anyone else. First, it was the women arriving like ants to sugar. Then it was the wigs, all looking too perfect for this world. Then she started noticing strange signs. Her two goats, Bissy and Ola, suddenly refused to go near Loveth's salon. They would bleat, pull away, and even kick their legs any time she tried to drag them past the shop. Then, one night, Mama Alake had a dream. She saw Loveth braiding hair, but instead of customers, shadows sat in the chairs. Their eyes were wide and empty. Their hair kept growing, moving like snakes. And the mirror in the salon reflected water, not faces. The next morning, she walked up to Loveth. "My child," she said quietly, her voice grave, "I don't know what spirit gave you that gift, but hear me well. When God gives, it's slow, it's earned. But when the water gives, it drowns you in its gold first, and then it pulls your feet under." Loveth gave a polite, strained smile. "Mama, business is just finally moving." But inside, her stomach churned. She couldn't explain why her hands trembled each time she touched a new wig from Didi. One fateful night, around 9 p.m., heavy rain started falling. It hammered on Loveth's roof like fists. Thunder rolled over the community, and lightning lit up the skies in white flashes. Loveth sat inside alone, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea, trying to calm her nerves. She had been having weird dreams again. Water in her mirrors, strange voices in her ears, and the wigs, sometimes she swore, their hair moved on its own. She tried to brush it off, but deep down, something felt terribly wrong. Then suddenly, she heard a knock on her door. Loveth's heart jumped. "No one should be out in this weather," she whispered. With trembling hand, she opened the door. To her surprise, Didi was standing there, still soaked, as if she had just stepped from the river. "Do you like what you have become?" Didi asked quietly, her eyes deep and still like a dark pond. Loveth stared for a while, then a strange smile touched her lips. Yes, she whispered, a lie that felt almost true. Yes, I do. Didi stepped inside and placed a golden box on the table. It pulsed faintly, almost breathing. These are special wigs, Didi said. They are for people who want sudden changes in their lives. For breakthroughs. Loveth knelt beside the box and opened it slowly. The wigs inside glowed faintly, almost like candlelight trapped in strands of hair. One had purple flames dancing around its edges. Another looked like it was made from mist. Loveth's hands shook. I don't know if I should keep doing this, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Didi tilted her head, her eyes hardening. Then reject the gift, she said. Her voice was like a cold current. But if you do, the river will take more than this. Without another word, Didi turned and vanished into the stormy night. Loveth sat there, trembling in fear. She knew. She had struck a deal. A deal with something from the deep. But there was no way she would go back to her old life. She had fame. She had money. That was all that mattered now. The next day, she posted the new wigs on her Instagram page at an exorbitant price. She specifically wrote in her captions that they were for people who wanted breakthrough. Within minutes, orders started pouring in. However, 3 days later, Nancy Blue, a famous Instagram model and one of Loveth's recent customers who bought one of her glowing wigs, was found dead in her apartment. The wig was still on her head. The report said there were no bruises, no wounds, no signs of any break-in. But the scariest part, her lungs were filled with water. The doctor said it looked like she had drowned. But there was no bathtub, no pool, no physical thing to show how she had drowned. On the other side, Loveth's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Some people were crying. Others, terrifyingly, were asking for the same wig Nancy wore. Loveth sat in her salon, her hands shaking, her breath shallow, her body numb. That night, as the rain poured heavily, she picked up the golden box. She ran outside into the dark, and with all her strength, she threw it into the river. Please, take your property. Leave me alone, she screamed into the storm. But the next morning, when she opened her salon, the golden box was sitting pretty on her table, untouched, unmoved. At this point, she finally understood. There was no turning back. On the outside, Loveth had everything she had prayed for: wealth, fame, purpose. Her salon was booked for months. People traveled across states just to sit in her chair. Brands were sending her offers. Newspapers wanted interviews. Influencers called her a hair healer. But inside, she was breaking. Her hands tingled every time she touched the wigs. Her dreams were the scariest part of her life. Every night, she would see women with no faces, brushing their long, wet hair with combs made from bone. They would sing songs in a language she didn't understand, but the words echoed in her ears when she woke up. Some nights, she dreamed of the river swallowing her salon whole, dragging everything down into the cold, dark depths. She didn't know how to feel. Sometimes she felt satisfied, powerful. Other times, she blamed herself for opening that door that rainy night. Then, one quiet morning, Didi came again. This time, she held a silver box. Inside, there was just one wig shimmering faintly, like captured moonlight on water. On top of the wig was a folded note. It read, "This wig is for you alone. Only you can wear it." Loveth stared at the wig for a long time. Then slowly, her hand shaking, she placed it on her head. The moment it touched her scalp, her body froze. Her eyes rolled back. Her mind cracked open, like ice under a heavy blow, splintering. Then, suddenly, she saw a vision. In the vision, Didi was screaming, being dragged into the river by the community people, a sacrifice long ago. Then, Loveth saw her salon. But it wasn't a salon anymore. It was underwater, filled with ghostly women, their hair flowing like tendrils of the deep, getting their hair done in slow motion. Their eyes were empty. Their mouths were open, like they were singing a silent song. Loveth tried to pull off the wig, but it wouldn't move. It clung to her, a second skin. Then she looked into the mirror. What she saw made her heart stop beating. Her eyes were no longer normal. They were fish eyes, round, cold, deep, like the deepest part of the river itself. Loveth's lips trembled. Then slowly she smiled. A wide, terrifying smile, a thin, reedy song, a melody without words, began to hum in her throat. It joined the ancient chorus of the river. She was home.